Hi, Dr. Taylor. This is Amber Wentworth, and I am here to present my specialized instruction presentation. Um, Today we're going to be talking about a student whose IEP I was given by one of the special ed teachers at the school that I'm currently placed at. This is a male student. He's currently an 8th grader. The IEP that I was given was from his 7th grade year last year. His psychological test scores have him in a low average range of cognitive functioning and the very low range of long-term retrieval. His particular weaknesses in the areas of long-term memory retrieval, visual motor integration, processing speed, visual spatial thinking, and fluid reasoning. He struggles in all academic areas, but particularly in reading, writing, and math, and I believe that has to do mostly because of his long-term retrieval issues. His handwriting is illegible, which was also indicated on his IEP. But it did say that he's a very hard worker. He's kind, polite, and always has a smile on his face. One of the things that was also listed on the IEP was the fact that a lot of times the teachers will give him a passage to read, or they will read it with him. And then when they give him instruction on to write a response or something like that to what he has read, he will write a response, always illegibly, but he cannot hold on to the information that he had just previously read enough to be able to fully write a response. So because of that, the measurable annual goal and short-term objective that I decided to focus on was the one that said by December of 2015, the student will increase his reading accuracy and fluency from a P to a R Fountas and Fountas and Pinnell reading level as measured by running records and anecdotal notes. First of all, what I wanted to do was to make sure that everyone understood what fluency is. Fluency is the ability to read a text with speed and accuracy, recognizing each word effortlessly, and beginning to construct meaning from each word and group of words as they are read. Without the attainment of fluency, there's an inability to master vocabulary, and there's a gap in the ability to focus to comprehend texts. Most children develop into fluent readers by 3rd grade. Approximately 75% of students who are poor readers in 3rd grade continue to be lower achieving readers in 9th grade, and in essence, they do not recover their reading abilities even into adulthood. Thus, the assessment of student progress and fluencies become an integral part of reading instruction. Fluency is measured by giving the student a passage of text written on grade level that has not been read by him or her prior to the assessment. The student is timed for 1 minute and reads out loud as much of the passage as he or she can in that time. In the end, the observer, who's usually a teacher or reading specialist, calculates the number of words correctly pronounced and identifies the reading rate. This is done by taking the total number of words that were read correctly and dividing them by the number of words in the passage. These scores are then recorded and compared to a national average for that specific grade level, giving a quartile range for where that student stands in comparison. So after everyone kind of understands a little bit about fluency now and what it is and how it is measured, we also needed to discuss the benchmark, which talks about P to R on the Fountas and Pinnell reading level. Fountas and Pinnell is a benchmark system that's used at the school that I'm currently at. It is a system that consists of a series of carefully designed benchmark books that measure the level of difficulty at which a student is able to read fiction and nonfiction texts. The books range in difficulty from those for beginning readers, which is A, to those for advanced readers, which is Z. Let me move myself out of the way here. Okay, so for this student's benchmark, they're asking that he go from a P to an R. And so P is usually set at the end of 3rd grade, beginning of 4th grade, and then they will generally transition into R sometime in 4th grade, no later than beginning of 5th grade. So this is an 8th grader who they're hoping to move to a beginning 5th grade reading level. Okay, move myself back. Okay, so the first research article that I found um, was called Building Reading Fluency in a Learning Disabled Middle School Reader. This was a year-long research project, and it only involved one learning disabled middle school student by the name of Luke, and um, it was a he was given tutoring to increase his reading fluency, but the methods that they used I thought were really good, and so that's why I decided to use this article. Luke was a third grade level reader. He had ADD, and so what they did was they put him into this tutoring program that ran for an entire year, and they implemented three main strategies for improving his reading fluency. First, they would um, tape record his homework where he listened to a page of text read. Then he reread the text either silently um, to himself as homework generally, and then he would have to read the passage and be timed for 2 minutes to see how many words he could read within that time. The passages always came from the homework assignments which he had. The second strategy that they used was guided reading, and guided reading of instructional level text was given usually on a grade 3 to 4 learning level. He would partner read every other paragraph and then every other page, and then he was stopped to ask comprehension questions along the way, and he was also asked to make a prediction before he was asked to finish reading the end of the passage silently. And then the third one was repeated reading, which is one of the most popular strategies for increased fluency in students. And in repeated reading, the tutor would pre-count a 300-word passage from a chapter already read during guided reading, and the student was asked to read as much of the passage as possible in 2 minutes, but he was asked to read it as smoothly as possible. The tutor then took note of how many words the student read within the 2 minutes. He then repeated this section and tried to improve his smoothness and pace, and then another word count was taken. The same passage was used repeatedly for several days, and then he would move on to a different one. Some of the things at the end of the year, some of the things that they noticed, well, first of all, his fluency had increased by 33%. And what they decided was that the keys to keeping him engaged in the process were letting him choose, or they would choose reading passages that he found interesting or entertaining. And they also used reading passages that were on his reading level. And they also used daily improvement data to encourage the student. And by that, they would set goals and say, okay, this is your goal for today. And if he met that goal, you know, that was great. And then they would say, okay, for tomorrow, this is your next goal. And he would use the same passage so that he could meet that goal. And by him knowing what the goal was and him having something to strive for, that was also very effective in this process. But yeah, the key really was choosing books that captured his imagination and his interests, and that kept him engaged in the process as well. He started off reading a little over 100 words per minute and ended up reading around 130 words per minute. And in late fall, when the genre changed to novels, there was a significant increase in his reading rates. An 8 to 12 word per minute increase on first and second trials, and 18 to 24 word per minute increase on third and fourth trials. Okay, so the next article I read primarily had to do with using reader's theater on second and third grade special education students to increase their fluency. Okay, so reader's theater is a method that improves readers' fluency and comprehension while keeping the students interested and involved in the active reading. Implemented with second and third grade students in this school, 12 students in a self-contained class of learning disabled and emotionally handicapped students. That's who the focus of this study was on. It can also be used in secondary classrooms as an effective strategy for increasing fluency. I've actually personally seen reader's theater used in a high school setting. And not only does it help with fluency, but it also helps to keep students engaged in the reading of materials. The Reader's Theaters that I witnessed in the high school setting were used in a mythology class where sometimes the mythology texts can be cumbersome, especially to students who are not very fluent readers. The Reader's Theaters would make them more accessible and more entertaining to help to keep the readers engaged in the process. So the purpose of this study was to provide students with opportunities to practice and then perform a Reader's Theater script and ultimately impact the attitudes of resistant readers while improving their oral fluency. And this is how it worked. It was used repeatedly from January through April of a school year. And on day one of Reader's Theater, groups read the script silently first and then aloud with the group. Roles were assigned and scripts were provided. Time was spent decoding unknown words. On day two, the instructor modeled parts using inflection and intonation, and students then practiced aloud 3 times. On day 3, the instructor read the script aloud before the individual groups practiced read independently. On day 4, they practiced some more, and it was basically the same as day 3. And then on day 5, which was performance day, students performed the script in class, and the performances were videotaped for further review by the students, and they were asked to identify 2 things they did well and 2 things they felt they needed to work on. The results were that students' attitudes, confidence, oral fluency, and sight word recognition improved. Their oral fluency scores increased 17 words on average per student in just 8 weeks. And 90% of students stated that they would like to do Reader's Theaters each week. What they found was that it did increase their motivation to read because they were active parts of the reading. Okay, so how would I implement this with my own students? Or with the student that I had the IEP for. So this student participates in an inclusion classroom setting, which is helpful in giving him more one-on-one instruction with both the regular ed and special ed teachers. So I would use all of these strategies as time permitted to help him to increase his reading fluency. I think guided reading would easily be able to be implemented in the classroom, especially with the help of the inclusion teacher. I would assign tape recorded or audiobooks for the student to use both in the classroom and at home. And I know because of my own experience working at the library that there's a program called GLASS, which is Georgia Libraries for Accessible Statewide Services, that provides audiobooks for free for students who are hearing impaired. But students with learning disabilities can also apply for that program, and they can receive those books for free, and they come straight to their homes. I think they get like 5 at a time, and you can specify which types of books, or if there's certain titles that you need for a class, then you can do that as well. Also, many of the Georgia libraries, they provide services like Overdrive, which is what is used at the library that I work at. And Overdrive has thousands of audiobooks that are available for free download with a library card. So I would implement those books at home to help the student to be able to hear the reading and then be able to practice the reading as well along with the books. I would also help the student choose reading materials that he will enjoy reading but are still on his reading level. I would set aside time for repeated reading each week, and we would set goals for each repeated reading. And I would also use Reader's Theater with the entire class. I think Reader's Theater would be beneficial for all the students, not just the ESS students, because it does help to engage all of the students at one time. And so everyone's fluency can increase, not just the ESS students. And there are my references. And thank you, Dr. Taylor. I appreciate it.